Hello, gorgeous Julia.
Hello.
So good to see you again. So Julia has actually already done a testimonial about Soul to Soul here in this group, but we were so inspired by her recently with what she's been able to achieve, not just in the love department. She'll share that with us at the end, but it's so much deeper than that when you come through Soul to Soul, because everything you're not dealing with is forced to come to the surface to be dealt with. And what inspires me so much about Julia is, and I'm going to let her share, much more juicy coming from her mouth, but when she came to me, there was every reason why she could make excuses or give reasons as to why she didn't need to put herself first and invest in herself. So I just want to reintroduce you, Julia from UK, from London town. London town, who calls it that? So why don't you begin telling us, what you do, because it's very relevant to this story, and then just what it was like. We'll just fast forward to when we got to that decision, that part of the call where you were like, Lucy, I've got to do this, right? I'm talking about soul to soul here. Just would you mind taking us into your inner world of what was truly coming up for you, because it's so helpful for people to really hear this transparency.
Yeah.
So first tell us what industry you're in, because that's like...
Yeah. I'm an accountant. I currently work in a bank. So basically numbers is my thing. And when I came to Soul to Soul, it was because I was looking to find someone. I'd been single for a long time, but I was also kind of spiraling because of other reasons that were under the surface that at that point, obviously on our initial call, I didn't bring up, but it was one of the things that was holding me back from signing up, or mentally I was struggling with it. And that was that one, obviously you always have the thing of, oh, what if this doesn't even make a difference? And, but the second thing was money. And I was suddenly, one, from an accounting point of view of like risk aversion and do I want to pay this? But two, I was actually in quite a lot of debt.
Yeah.
And no one at the time, I was actually the only person that knew about it. So I had no support on it. And I kind of just thought, if I do this, my debt's getting bigger rather than smaller. And this is really irresponsible. This is not what I should be doing. I should be thinking about how to pay it off. But I was in this spiral of just not being happy and then spending to try and make myself feel better almost. And I just had this debt just carried with me, and I needed something to change that. And I didn't, to be fair, at the start, I wasn't thinking that Soul to Soul would help with that. I was just thinking more from the point of view of meeting my soulmate and, maybe making myself more confident. But that was all I was actually expecting.
That's so powerful. So then I'd love for you to share with us, knowing that this was all running through your head, that you're an accountant and that you're, in that logical brain, plus you had the debt on top of that, which would have been enough for you to just say, look, this sounds awesome and I need it, but I can't do it, right?
Yeah.
So it's very, very inspiring. What had you actually choose you that day?
I think I just got to a point where enough was enough, and I needed something. I didn't know what it was, but I needed something. And then when I was on the call with you, I really felt like I kind of connected with you and that you understood the situation. And I don't know, I just felt like this was something, my gut basically said this was something I should do.
Right.
And I'm so glad I did. I'm honestly so glad I did.
Well, we're glad you did too. I remember that phone call like it was yesterday, and I really do just want to acknowledge that your tenacity, your commitment to yourself in that moment, because life is full of these moments, and now you've got this new frame and reference that, when things aren't always making logical sense, you can trust your heart with like, well, actually in the past now, when I've made this very big decision, it served me and it was way out of your comfort zone. And again, for those of you listening, Julia, I just can't say this enough, she would have been very justified. Thank you, Lucy. No, of course this sounds awesome, but would you have come back?
What if I'd have got off the call?
Yeah.
Probably not, because my logical brain would have kicked in even more, and I would have been like, because I remember saying to you on the call, I'm not sure where I can get this money from. Yes. I was like, I'd have to get another credit card, and then I'd have to do this. And you obviously said, about paying in full, or you can pay like some now, some later, but it's better to pay up front. And I was like, I just can't pay it all up front. And then I remember saying, I will figure out how to do it. At the end of the call, by the end of the call, but yeah.
That's okay. So this is a beautiful segue. Okay. And you want to put this in your journal if you haven't already, on who Julia and that queen identity is, which is someone who takes bold risks, who follows through on decisions that actually feel right in her gut. That's the new frame, and you can count on that for the rest of your life. But
I just want to add that there's a lot of reasons people make. One of the things that the logical mind does is it is consistently and persistently wanting to keep you in the same place.
Yeah.
Okay, not in terms of a linear progression in your career or life, but in the safety, creating a safety for yourself. So a lot of women and men will make promises to themselves that, oh my God, I messed up. I have so much credit card debt. I will not be in this situation
again. It's a contract with ourselves.
We have heard this over and over again, and I wanted to actually bring light to that simple statement.
Yeah.
I promise myself that I will never get into debt again, and therefore I cannot invest in your program.
Not that it's investing in our program, it's investing in your future.
Well, there's two different words.
That's the truth.
Two different words we're using, debt versus investment. And, the reason I'm saying this is when you make a contract with yourself, it's then up to you to break it. And you have to have a strong enough
with something
reason,
that's going to serve you.
Yeah, and you have to have something stronger than that to then say, this is why I'm going to break it, and it was your gut. When you have that connection, when you have that gut, you have to trust that gut, because your brain is what got you here in the first place. Not to the call, I mean to the situation.
Yes.
The life that you are kind of struggling with.
Well, the lid's on, the logical brain's on, and the fear is high. Yeah. And that's where if we go back to, darling, it's great about the contracts, because we're constantly, whether you realize it or not, making these sacred contracts with ourselves. Many of you have done that. I did it at the age of 8. I will never let my heart be broken the way it was when my father died. And I didn't let love in until I was, truly until I met this guy. I had relationships where I let it in to a degree.
Yeah.
It was never intimacy, was never deeply fulfilling. I never felt they were the one. But that was me blocking that, because I'd already made that contract. So whether it's with love, you can just take a moment right now to really think honestly about, wow, where else am I making these contracts? It could even be with friendships. I've been hurt before, or girls are bitchy, whatever it is. And we make these contracts and we live into those. Yeah. And that's why, this is such a powerful conversation, because, of course, at the time, it was the last thing Julia really felt like doing was to put her hand, and hold that credit card and then swipe it. Yeah. So then you said, Julia, you know what? I'm going to find a way.
Yeah.
That was the most powerful statement I heard you say. And that's what these women that do go through soul to soul say. They cross that bridge of fear. It's very wobbly. People want to jump off and run away. And that's normal. That's the fear you've been living with all your life. And so, as you said, you were so done. There were tears, and you were just at that point, which is the only place really to get help, where you are done, where you're just like, no, I can't go on like this, and I will do whatever it takes. I'd say don't even bother thinking about soul to soul if you're just like, well, it's fine if I have it, it's fine if I don't. Although that conversation's another conversation, because often that's perfection. But anyway, Julie, I'd love to hand the reins over to you. So you came into soul to soul. You said a big fat yes to yourself.
Yeah.
In that moment, even though you were aware that, oh my goodness, I'm out of my comfort zone, was there heart calm? Was there a feeling of relief? Like, what was it for you?
I think initially, from the perspective of wanting to find my soulmate, there was a bit more calm of like, right, this is gonna help. This is gonna make a difference. I think from the money side, I had this knot that I was still feeling a bit sick about it, and like, because I didn't expect soul to soul to help with that. So I was like, well, I'm still going to have that issue even after after soul to soul. And as you know, it took me until halfway through the program to actually bring that stuff to the surface. And I just didn't want to talk about it. I was so embarrassed by it. No one else knew about it. I didn't initially feel like it was relevant to the whole soul to soul experience almost.
Yes.
And then initially because I was so embarrassed, I just reached out to you personally rather than actually sharing with the group, because I didn't want to tell the group. And I thought, if I just tell Lucy, then, you know, I can just let her know that this is what I'm dealing with. But thank goodness you encouraged me to actually share it with the group. And oh my goodness, that point after I did that, it was so scary, but it was like a whole weight was lifted, because this was the first time. I mean, I told some people snippets about how much I owed, but never the full story, because it was too much, it was too embarrassing. And to just go on and tell the girls in the group, this is, you know, this is it, this is everything. And I think there was a shift then, you know, just in it, all of it, in everything. And I think that was also the point where I really stepped up in Soul to Soul as well and started.
Oh, massive. Yeah. This is such a huge distinction. I've seen this now happening in, you know, other women that come through the process. I've got one going through it right now as we speak. She didn't realize it was so buried and there was so much shame. And now she's joined the dots and gone, I didn't even think, kind of similar to you, it was such a different compartment, like that this was having a bearing on why I was single. And her words were, who would want to take me on with this debt? Yes. And that was a subconscious contract of, I wouldn't do that to someone else. And it's all this internal stuff that we're doing. And Julia, that's possibly what it was for you, because it blocks the receiving when we're just married to this debt and we're making it our identity.
Yeah.
It's suffocating. Like we've been in debt. And it makes you feel heavy and nauseous and like you can't breathe. But what happened for you, just share it with us, that once you really faced it head on, and maybe tell us how much debt you were in as well.
Well, so that was it. I feel like prior to that there was a guy that I liked, and I almost felt like part of the feeling of not being good enough for him was because I was like, well, I'm an accountant and I can't even look after my own money. You know, I can't get out of this debt. So why would he, like, what am I any good for if I'm an accountant that can't, you know, look after money? And that was one of the things that was blocking me, I guess, from letting him in. Not that I realized that at the time, and making me feel not good enough.
Yep.
But yeah, so the amount of debt that I was in at the time at Soul to Soul, which was December 2018, December last year, was £37,000. Which is about 50, for me, that's a lot of money.
50,000 US, yeah,
a lot of money. And I'd been in debt for the last 3 years before that. And I think the thing is, it's not that I just left it there. I'd been paying amounts off, but then it would always kind of seem to creep back up. I'd pay some off, it would creep back up. So it kind of stayed roughly the same the whole time, even though I was trying to bring it down. It was just sticking with me. And I guess because I wasn't mentally dealing with it, it wasn't going away, you know. Yeah. And then it almost became part of me, like, oh well, this is who I am. I'm someone with debt, you know. I'm bad with money. You know, you tell yourself all these stories, and then you block yourself from. You're like, well, if I'm bad with money, I'm just going to spend some more anyway, you know. And it doesn't matter.
Yep.
I'm already.
It becomes part of the self-destruction that is subconscious that a lot of people are in.
And it's a burden. It's like it becomes part of your identity. It eats away at your self-worth.
Yeah. And when it moves into the shame category, what happens is we kind of dust it under the carpet so no one can see it. But when you do that, you can't see it either. And it becomes part of your shadow self.
And a very big blind spot that's toxic.
So, and we share this with a lot of people all the time. Your money story is your love story.
They're all connected. Because it's all the golden bullion underneath is the self-worth. So often, because I have a, you know, the thing about Soul to Soul, I want you girls to know is this is not some elitist program. The reason it's a high-end investment is because otherwise you don't have skin in the game. Of course, I have over 10 years of and beyond of experience. I've invested over 250K. It'd be more like 300K now and still going, because that's my focus. And that's a brag of mine, because, you know, I'd rather have that than buying a million houses. But I totally just was thinking about a million houses. Going, that'd be nice. But what was my point, darling? I just lost my thread.
I lost it too at a million houses.
I totally just got excited about seeing all the houses. Help me out. Listen, here we go. Sorry, it's good to have these moments. It's like when I used to do radio and I'd make a mistake. I'd make a mistake and my listeners love me even more. Because I'm like, oh, she's not perfect. No, fuck no, I'm not perfect. Anyway, So because people say, oh, well, I don't earn, $100,000, but it's got nothing to do with that. I have women who don't know how they're going to pay their rent, but they said the same thing Julia did. I'm going to find a way. Then I've got my women that are at the head of a company where money is not a shortage, but their mindset is in scarcity. And what it comes down to is I'm not worth that investment. I'll buy a house, I'll buy a car, I'll go on a trip, but I couldn't spend that on me. And that's the issue.
Yeah.
So it's just such huge kudos to you, Julia, that in the midst of this shitstorm when it came to money, with how you felt with yourself, you were able to dig deep, right, all the way down into like that sacral chakra, into that feminine part of your womb, and just be like, if it's not going to be about Julia now, then when is it? And it's just so inspiring that you did that. It's a much more inspiring story than just like, yeah, boom, there's my credit card. That seriously, this is where the big up level comes from.
And the reward is even more. When it's difficult for you to put money down, whatever amount it is, that means that there's more skin in the game than everyone else, more at stake, and you want to learn more, you want to learn the most, and you really take it on.
And integrate it, not just learn it.
Yeah, and integrate it, activate it, but you take it on. So there's more learning for those.
Which she did, because if Julia, this is another celebration, because if Julia had just gone through the process, which could easily happen, because I'm pretty good at being intuitive and psychic, but like I can't necessarily know, oh gosh, she's sitting on X amount of debt, like she tells me. So that took a hell of a lot of courage to actually private message me and go, Lucy, I need to cough up this big fur ball. Boom. And she did. And I'm sure a part of you was maybe even, oh my God, what's Lucy going to think?
Yeah.
But of course, having been in debt myself, even if I hadn't, I had nothing but like, wow, look at your bravery right now. And of course you got a lovely message back. It was not like, it was just like, okay, here's what we need to do to deal with it. And now that you've told me, we can actually get that elephant out of the room. And from then on, you just took this massive, because not just with the debt money story that came up, but it was also this part of Julia that was almost you were apologizing for. And I was like, we're going to change this right now. And that was what happened. And another decision was made from you, which was, I'm going to face this, I'm going to deal with it, and I'm going to master it. That was actually, whether you know it or not, was a new contract you actually made with yourself in the middle of the process. So now, obviously, she freaking came through with flying colours. She became a huge inspiration in the group at the time. I remember the girls leaning in because of her vulnerability, and because of seeing another soul sister's courage. It actually had them then cough up their own fur balls. And I just love the expression because it's raw and you can actually viscerally feel the fur ball. But that's what this is. Why can't I do a program to fluff around the edges? This is about like fully stepping up, shining the light on the spotlight on those things we tuck away in the closet that we don't want to look at. We can't have transformation with anything not coming up to be healed. And so this is the you go.
Say, after I brought that up, it then felt like, because that was my biggest shame, it then felt like I could lift all these other blocks and I could bring up anything I wanted, because that was the big thing that was holding me back. The vision. I couldn't, obviously, I want to change career. It was one of those things. But in my head before was, well, I can't change career because I can't afford to change career. All the money stuff, it was linking into everything, not just the relationships. It was everything. Everywhere.
I just had this vision of you, of course, in New York. But it was like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where like Donatello like comes up and takes the lid like on the road. And it's just like boom, and this thing comes up, and all the turtles get out. It's just a funny visual, but I literally just saw this steel freaking like lid, the manhole just come up. That's what you did. You were just like, I'm coming out. It's almost like a rebirth, and you're just like, this is me. I have no shame. I've got no room to hide anymore. I didn't come here to hide, and that's what you did. Which meant that it was almost like once you lifted that heavy weight, as you said, you brought up all the other things that were actually much easier to lift. Once you dealt with this. And now, again, you have that reference of I'm someone who when my back's against a wall, I stand up and get taller. There's that expression of you either let a lion lay its paws all over you, or you get on its back and ride it. And you were there at that stage with the paw about to go on you. No. And this is why you're shining so bright right now, Julia. Not just, of course, you're absolutely beautiful, but I was just saying to Julia before we actually came on live that There's this beautiful openness. There's this sense of freedom. She's just present. There's no mask or veneer or like constraints. It's just like, yeah.
Yeah, you're relaxed. There's relaxed energy. There's flow.
Total, and there's confidence. A major confidence.
And I think the main thing you said to me throughout Soul to Soul was, you need to speak up. You're not talking loud enough. You're masking your voice.
You were, and I haven't even that's something now. I actually totally forgot that because that doesn't even occur to me right now. This is how much the shift is. There are other women that relate to who also have that same note, but it's like, I can't hear you. What's going on? They're like, but that's what we do. We end up putting such a lid on ourselves where we're almost basically apologizing for being alive. And it's just like, fuck that. So,
well, it's actually, if you think about it, when you have weight on your chest, a heavy weight on your chest, you can barely speak. And that's what that is.
Yeah.
Even though it's not physically there, it's a weight on your chest. And that's why your voice doesn't come out. But when you push it off, you can sing.
Yeah, you look like a different person.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, because it's never about, I mean, beauty is absolutely from within. And obviously, as we can see here, to me, Julia's like a supermodel. But she's right now, what I'm commenting on is it's just this inner harmony and inner knowing of her worth. You can't manufacture that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd love to go back to then.
Well, I want to know why she's radiating so much.
Well, hang on. Let's just cover off this story and then we'll get to that because, of course, you want to know that because you're a bloke. But, Julia, if you want to share with us, just to keep in context the conversation. So you came in with
37,000,
about 50,000
which is
US.
About 70 Aussie.
Okay.
70,000 Aussie.
Wow.
Well.
Yeah, that's significant. And then that was December in Soul to Soul, and now you're down to.
I'm down to 19K. So I've paid off, I think, oh my gosh, my maths, 18, 37 down to 19. So I've paid off £18,000 in 7 months.
And then, as the universe would have it, now there's another windfall that's come to you, where you'll have it down to how much?
Well, I will have it down to 0, but so one of the things after Soul to Soul is that I said to myself, oh, before June, I'm going to bring in £60,000, and I was like, I'll just say it, £60,000 excess income. And I ended up quite unexpectedly, and I know it's not necessarily the best reason for getting the money, but basically my grandfather passed away. But even in that case, I wasn't expecting anything because all of the inheritance was going to my dad and his sister. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't expecting any money. And then my dad took me and my brother out for lunch, and he was like, I'd just like to let you know that when we sell the house, I'd like to gift £50,000 each to you and your brother. So that was just completely unexpected. I remember saying to you on the course, well, you were like, well, you can bring in money, and I was like, well, how? Where's it going to come from?
Yes.
If it's not coming from my job, where's it going to come from?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and it's so funny, and it's so many things. Like the other day, just randomly, our landlord messaged us and said, oh, by the way, they've changed the rules on deposits and I have to give you some of your deposit back. I mean, you can't, how would you even know that was going to happen? Because
you were on the lookout for money incoming. And now this is happening in your dating life. Let's jump ahead to that huge celebration.
Well, before we jump ahead, I just want to say that
she was expecting money to come in.
You were expecting, and it's no longer a weighing factor in your mind. So you're not always saying I'm in debt, and I'm in debt.
You change the story.
You don't even have that in your vibration anymore. So it opens up the door for money to come in. And honestly, it doesn't.
Money's energy.
It doesn't. Yeah, money is energy.
It's an energetic.
It's a vibration.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how it comes in. What you declare is what's important, and you declared the amount, and you can continue declaring the amounts.
And you had conviction with it. You said, I don't know. I remember seeing your lives about it. You're like, I don't know. This is what I'm committed to.
Yeah.
So you took the commitment off the self-loathing and the shame, and I don't know how, to this is what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what shifted.
So
and then, surprise, surprise, as you girls would know, law of attraction, most people here will say to me, oh, I get the law of attraction, but I haven't used it yet properly. It's not working for me. And because you are so far out of your comfort zone, you're like, well, let me just fully try this on.
Yeah. And it wasn't like, so obviously that the last few years where I stayed in the debt, I haven't had a massive pay rise this year. And yet I've been able to pay off that debt. And it actually felt quite easy. It wasn't that I felt like I was scrimping. I was like, okay, I can only spend this much a week. I just, for some reason, was spending less. And even in that time, I went on holiday to the Maldives, and I've just booked a trip to New York. So it's not like in that time, right, I'm going to pay off 18K, I'm going to do absolutely nothing, and I'm going to shut myself off.
That's right.
You know?
Because you started to activate your belief system. So what happened was flow happened.
Yeah.
Before it was stagnant and fearful. And then, as you said, you just kept spending anyway because you're trying to fill the void of like, well, I've got this anyway. Whereas once you started to set yourself free and say, I am not my debt, and actually I'm committed to abundance, that's when the scales went like that.
And this is the difference. I just want to say that a lot of people confuse soul to soul as debt versus an investment. And I just want to be clear on that distinction.
Consumer debt.
Consumer debt are things like that depreciates and adds no value, like a car. You know, if you buy a car, it's a consumer debt. It's like a $50,000 debt, a $20,000.
Or clothes.
Your clothes, things like that. An investment is always something that will pay dividends, that will always stay with you throughout.
That's going to make a big difference for yourself and your life and your future.
So when did soul to soul start? When do you start relating to soul as an investment in your mind?
I think it must have been at that point, because I think before that point and before the halfway mark, I know that I was kind of coasting with it. I was doing it, but I wasn't giving it my all, and I was doing the thing I normally do where I've been quite lucky when I was growing up that I was able to pass exams without putting much effort in. So I was like, well, I can pass this, but I don't really have to, I'll just do the bare minimum. And then I suddenly realized after that no, I want to make a change. I want to do this. This is important. Why am I wasting my time again?
And there was some tough love in there as well from me.
There was. There was. But yeah, I think it was that halfway mark where I was suddenly like, do you know what? I need to do this. I need to do this properly. Otherwise it's just something else that, like you say, is a debt where it hasn't really made any difference.
Yeah.
Much of a difference. And I'll go back to how I was before. And, you know, then like you say, it's debt rather than investment.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you were holding yourself back. And then when you were all in, warts and all, was when you massively up leveled. And that's really the celebration here, where you're like, oh, hang on a minute. This is what I say to women that are on, at that decision point. This is the small investment that's going to get you out of this scarcity consciousness, out of this shame, out of this burden energy and the not enoughness, and the total judgment of self, and it'll set you free, because you're going to actually take your power back and get that worth dialed up so that you can, in your woman, not your little girl, actually get this handled once and for all, not from a quickly fix the debt, but from something that's sustainable, because it's a whole new mindset.
Yeah.
It's not just, let's just quickly get the debt paid and scramble for money and hope we win the lottery. That's not solving anything. It's about properly going to the nucleus of where this originated, why you feel the need to fill the void anyway, and then building that self-worth, which is why you said, oh, I didn't have a pay rise, but yet there was just this ease and flow, and there was abundance in your life.
£18,000 is a lot to be able to pay off in a matter of months.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And congratulations. It's huge.
Yeah.
And the rest of it, money pours in. What your next job is to just ask for more. That's it. And don't be worried about it. It'll come in. I dare to say that, week 4, things don't just happen suddenly. When you come into soul to soul, even though you started with the thinking that I pass everything with little work, so I'll just put the bare minimum. So when people come to soul, it's like putting in hot water to boil. And, the flame turns on and the water is just, it's just simmering slowly, and then it starts boiling over. And typically, usually by week 4, it's pretty much
pretty hot.
volcanic.
That's, yeah.
So what's beautiful is, regardless, whether you brought it up consciously or not, it would have week 4, it would have come out because of the journey that you were going, and the journey everyone goes through in the program. So it's beautiful that you were able to. It's confronting, and that was the heaviest thing for you to lift, and that's why you started getting queasy around it, and then you messaged her. Now, if it was something else in your space, that would have come up as well. But the beauty of this conversation is that often people don't think about their money story as being their love story, and even though we've told them a million times it's the same, they don't equate the two. And so it seems, coming from the far left, that suddenly, hey, I have these financial struggles. No.
Why would that be relevant? It's like, it's very relevant. You can get billionaires that are actually feeling very, very much broke and in their scarcity, and they don't even share it. But I just want to quickly go back to something that's also really helpful for people is, I will have, Julia, because you did do the split pay, correct? Yes. And this is also really relevant, because I share with many women that are at that same decision point. Are they going to choose their same fear that's been running their relationships, or are they going to choose their dream and their future? And what I want to highlight with your decision, as I said, everything was stacked against you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That little girl or your bodyguards would be like, don't do it, don't do it. And that higher self, that queen, that goddess, that abundant self was like, bloody oath, I'm going to do it. I'm going to find a way. So you did the split pay. You didn't know, truthfully, I knew on that call, you didn't know how you're going to do the second amount. And this is what stopped women from taking the leap, because they're like, oh, Lucy, how am I supposed to find it? I said, I've never had anyone, not one person, do this program who did the split pay, and they legit, I have most of my split payers are not sure where they'll get the second installment. But because they have such a quick up level, they find a way, they get into action, and they step into their power. So I just also wanted to point that out, because that was another reason you could have easily been stopped. Lucy, money doesn't grow on trees. How am I supposed to whip this out of my butt?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you were in such possibility, and knowing, just to remind you how freaking awesome this is, of just like, I will find a way. That's what you said.
Yeah. And I had to add it. I was shifting stuff around. It was like applying. I made sure.
You were the definition of resourceful and committed.
Yeah, because you knew the value had received by that week 4, by the when
she was halfway through.
When we do split pay, it's like you pay half now and half in 30 days, because it's a 2-month program, right?
Yeah.
So,
but this is such an important point, because as humans, and I've certainly had the same thought process, like, if you can't see it, you can't have it. I don't live like that anymore. I'm like, if I can see it and feel it and believe it and trust it, I can create it. And that was actually one of the biggest breakthroughs is on that call. Are you going to say yes to yourself? Because the universe listens. When you step up like that, it starts to move on its axis, and you can feel it. It's like, whoa, something shifted. And you lived in the uncertainty, Julia. That's what I want to celebrate. You didn't know. You legitimately did not have anything tangible to hold on to other than your faith and that deep settledness that was in your stomach. I know you said you've had your stomach in knots as well because of that everyday fear, but I'm saying that there was this higher self that was guiding you, saying, we'll do it, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Based on your heart, not based on anything that, as an accountant especially, would have been so far out of your comfort zone. And I just love that we're having this conversation, because it's just another opportunity to celebrate who you are. And this conversation now is lending itself to other women that are sitting there. Most of us have gone through debt, or you are very well in debt now. But you can also start reframing that, even just today. Could you please grab the charger, darling? As saying that whatever you've invested in so far, even if it is consumer debt, but it's an investment that you're going to take care of.
Yeah.
Soul to soul is definitely, or anything that's related to actually bettering the relationship with yourself, your money story, your mental health, obviously, is every time an investment, right? Anything going to any surgery you get is absolutely an investment. That's not a debt. But I'm just saying that even today in this moment, if you're sitting there going, gosh, I relate to Julia's story, and right now I'm sitting in this mountain of debt that is just eating me alive, take a moment right now to literally write down on a piece of paper, I don't care if it's an envelope like I've got here, like write notes on an envelope, I am not my money story. I am not my debt.
Mm-hmm.
And I can get myself out of this just by making the decision that I will, and I am. That's a powerful reframe right now.
Yeah, and also another reframe is every business owner and every millionaire has debt.
But we don't call it. We call it investments.
You don't view it as
we
debt
literally
because
now in this household, every single bill that arrives on this table, right? I'll say, and I'll have to stop myself sometimes or adjust. I say, we need to pay off those investments. Every single thing, because it keeps your mindset healthy and it keeps you in this gratitude. Because when you can shift, this is another little nugget of gold, is when you can actually be like, wow, I had the access to get myself whatever those things were, like that car or whatever. I'm grateful that I had those funds. And that's what I say to women that are sitting there that actually have the funds in their savings account, or they know they could get a credit increase. Be like, well, that's what credit cards are there for an emergency. Or that's what savings is for, not just a rainy day, but for something that's going to better you. Yeah. Otherwise, what's the point of our life if we're not happy? Women come to me, change in anxiety. I'm like, if this is not worth solving, and if you're not getting what you want in terms of letting love into your life, like this needs to be the most important thing.
Yeah.
So it's really coming back to that conversation of when you start to get grateful that there are channels available. It's how you view it.
Yeah.
Getting a loan can be one of the most powerful things you do to move yourself forward. And I can speak to that because I was in a mountain of debt. And if I didn't keep taking risks and believing in my higher vision and my higher purpose, I would have quit this business a long time ago and I would not still be here. I would not. He knows it. I said to him, I don't know if I can keep doing this because I've had my own obstacles with money and just with, self-worth and all the stuff you girls experience. But the difference is I did not quit. I wanted my dream more than my fear. And I didn't let, at the time, my mountain of debt.
We don't have these conversations now, by the way.
No,
this is
an old story.
Long time ago, before everything.
Sure, it's not that long ago. I want to keep it real. Let me finish. But we don't have that now. But I'm saying the reason we don't have it now, and we can celebrate the fact that we're out of all of that, was because I didn't give up.
Yeah.
I kept it clear on it's investing in myself, even that 7th time or the 8th time. Even when I was burnt a little bit along the way, that I went, this is the thing that's going to, I didn't stop until I got what I knew I could get, which is the same with you, right?
Yeah.
You're just like, this is it.
I just want to add to that after you've done this work on yourself, invested in yourself and aligned yourself to what's possible and to who you are, moving forward, most likely, there's a high probability, like 99% probability, that you will never incur debt ever again because of the way you view money, your relationship with money, your relationship with choices and making powerful choices, making empowered decisions.
There's a new respect for yourself, therefore for money.
Yeah, so therefore from now on, and this is a huge, huge celebration for you, like really take this in, that you will never ever have debt again.
You'll have investments. You'll make investments.
You'll have investments. But investments are easy to take care of than debt, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't view them in the same way. Investments are like flotations in the sea, and versus debt, which is the chains that pull you down into the sea.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of choosing to invest in yourself powerfully. So
to get the support that's going to get you out of that shit show. So now we can segue into where Julia's at, just on the love front, which is why women come to Soul to Soul. But I just think it's so powerful to have this conversation about money because it's all interconnected. So Julia, share with us now what's going on the love front.
I'm currently dating someone. It's still early days, but as I mentioned to you, it's just a completely different type of dating. Whereas before, I would date someone and I'd really overinvest, and because my self-worth was low, I'd be constantly thinking, well, do they like me enough? Where's it going? Does it want to go anywhere? And I was anxious in between. I haven't heard from him. What does this mean? Or analysing what he said. All this rubbish. And now I'm dating from a place of, he's coming towards me, he's showing me his interest, and two, even if I don't hear from him, I'm not anxious, because I'm like, well, you know, if he likes me, he'll come towards me, and I'm worth coming towards. And if he doesn't, then there's someone better, you know. There's no need to be anxious.
You've got you.
Yeah, exactly. And that, I think, obviously then that energy comes out. So then he's like, well, she's not worried, so, you know, let's carry on with this, and I'm happy to come towards her. And, you know, I don't know, the vibe shifts, and then the vibe in the guy shifts, and everything.
Well, massively, because of what you're doing, Julia, is you're at home in who you are. You're not going from need. Before it was from need and lack, right? That's where it was coming from, and insecurity. Now, because you've literally done the work and made that commitment to yourself to focus on Julia and to sort her out emotionally, financially, on all the levels, to make us a clean house. You're actually sitting there in this clean energy of just like, I know exactly what I bring to the table. I know exactly who I am and what I'm worth. And I'm not about to just give it away or worry about someone who's not going to honor that fact, because you're now in the abundance mentality of there's plenty more out there. You're not sitting there going, oh, is this my last guy on the planet? Which a lot of women are, especially with the age thing. It's like, I better make this work.
Yeah, because I'm 33, so a lot of people my age are just freaking out, and, you know, and it's not going to help. You know? No,
and it doesn't help at all. It stops things down, just like the money story. It blocks, because at the end of the day, we're all energy. So you're now on this. You're going with life. You're in the flow, Julia. On now in every avenue of your life, you're now doing this other passion of yours. With cooking. And really you've activated that passion. So you're in a completely different place, which is why you look like legitimately a different version of you.
I want to say that confidence, men are very much attracted to confidence, and
real confidence.
A lot of people, I was going to say, that a lot of people get confused with.
I used to have that I was born with a very natural confidence outwardly, but I didn't have the internal confidence, which is why I teach this work now, because once I got it, it changed my life. It was the one thing that was missing, which is why I was drinking too much and trying to fill that void, Julia, you know, like we were talking about, trying to make up for that part of myself that didn't feel enough or felt too much at times. And men could see straight through it. So I was attracting men that were also insecure.
So just, you know, what's going on here is you're exuding confidence with the abundance mentality, but that often gets confused with the external confidence and external abundance, like, oh, you know, if you're not going to respond to me, there's 10 other men out there. There's more fish in the sea.
But women don't believe that, really.
You know, there's a saying.
That's just a coping mechanism. It's like that masculine.
Men do that too. There's more fish in the sea. That's all external bullshit confidence that no one's attracted to.
Whereas the difference is, I love you brought that up. You believe it.
It's in here.
And we can tell. You're not proving, you're not like, oh my God. This is why I say to women, don't get all hoity-toity with all these men and da-da-da, and if they don't da-da-da. That's all fear-based. That's all with these conditions. If he doesn't do this, then I'm not going to do that. That's all fear. But and the energy you're sitting in right now is so compelling. It is. You're not even doing anything. You're just sitting there, receiving, being present, which is why no wonder this man's bending over backwards to keep seeing you. So lucky him. I can say. So it's just been awesome. I think we've covered everything now. But Julia, thank you so much for being vulnerable and letting us into your world.
Well, one more thing. Is there anything you would say to the beautiful women out there?
That's great.
Who might have a similar money story, money mindset.
Yeah.
And who's actually on the fence?
Well, they know that they need it and they want it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Basically, you need to also realize that the reason that you're stuck in this debt is because of something that's going on inside you. And soul to soul isn't just about finding your soulmate. It's about really finding yourself. Mm-hmm. So until you deal with that, you're going to still have the debt. So this is one way to help you deal with that and actually get past it. And, you know, you can use soul to soul to help you in so many ways, you know, and it's not just about, okay, I'm going to find a man.
Nice.
So I think that's what I would say, basically.
And that's
So
a
powerful.
true definition of investment.
Yeah.
Always paying dividends.
Yeah. I always say the soulmate is the cherry on top. You don't want him until you are in alignment. You don't want him a minute before that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're into women, you don't want to meet a woman a minute before that. You know, it's like you want to make sure. We don't want to wait till we're perfect or we're ready. This notion of I've got to just be perfect. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm not perfect, and I didn't wait to be so ready before I met a nam. But I took the time. I was 36 when I met him, right? Though I felt even older than you, and I had my mum practically wanting me to marry the postman. But I remember giving myself that grace, and I said, I'm not here just wanting to meet anyone. So at first, I've got to be my own soulmate first, and not just as a concept, but like really come home to me, and then I know he's going to walk in, which is exactly what happened. And it's the same energy you're in right now. There's no jazz hands and flighty energy. It's just very real, grounded knowing.
Yeah.
And that's magnetic right there. So we couldn't be prouder of you. And I know when Anam shared with me the celebration that you had in the sisterhood, and I missed that. So I thought, right, that's it. Let's shine the spotlight on this powerhouse, because, you know, it's in shared stories. You know, as women, we've got to support each other. And it's in this collective consciousness of seeing ourselves in each other that we can grow and get that permission. Just from hearing something like this will make a difference for so many women, Julia. So thank you for sharing your heart with us and your story.
Thank you guys as well.
Yeah. Oh, pleasure. And listen, I'm sure we'll be bringing you back for another celebration soon. We'll bring you back out. We're like, I'm engaged. We're like, yep, bring her on.
That's right. When are you coming to New York?
Pardon?
When are you coming to New York?
Start of September. I'm really excited. I've never been.
Awesome.
Oh, you haven't been? Oh my God.
No.
Okay, so we'll chat to her offline.
Yeah.
But listen, if anyone wants to reach out to you, you're okay with that?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Don't harass her for her accounting
Services.
But definitely, just reach out to her if there's something that you feel really
Thank
called
you,
to
Julia.
ask. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you. Speak to you soon.